So I want to go back to that a second because there's a lot. But in terms of ALCA, because you've now rattled off a number of things that in some ways seem like they could be quite different. I mean, Liz, I know you were a co-chair, either are currently or were recently. Is that correct?
So we have the Aging Life Care Association has local chapters, and I'm co-chair of the Philadelphia unit.
Right. And so ALCA itself, how recently has ALCA existed as an organization? I mean, I use the old term geriatric care manager. How long has ALCA existed? And I know ALCA has some core areas that they hope for everyone to be, I guess, trained in or able to deliver. Can you talk a little bit about ALCA? And I know that Erin's been actively involved as well.
Yeah, I was a former Philadelphia unit co-leader. I did that before Liz did it, and we've both been involved on the Mid-Atlantic chapter board as well. I finished my term there. I think, Liz, you're still involved with that also. So we've had some leadership opportunities both at the unit, meaning local level, and at the chapter level. I think the Aging Life Care Association, Liz, correct me if I'm wrong, just celebrated 30 years in business.
I should know.
I think that's on there. And yes, Larry, it used to be called the National Association of Professional Geriatric Care Managers, NAPCACUM, which just does not roll off the tongue. So they rebranded some years back to the Aging Life Care Association. And on that website, aginglifecare.org, there is a graphic that shows the 8 knowledge areas. And those, again, that's sort of that holistic, the comprehensive way that we approach work with our clients. Not every client is going to have a need in all those areas, but we are educated and experienced enough to step into any of those areas and help our clients if that's where their needs are, or at least make sure that they're in a good place.
So I was going to ask you guys that question. So Liz, if someone comes, I'm guessing that very often people present because there's a particular issue that's motivated. I mean, I guess we'd all like to have clients who are thinking ahead and planning ahead, and you have lots of time to deal with things, and it's not an emergency. My experience in working in post-acute and so forth is it doesn't tend to work that way. Everyone reacts when there's a problem. But given the fact that there are so many different things that you do, how does that work? I would think, when someone's in a semi-crisis or mode that they're motivated by one thing, talking about a living will isn't necessarily top of their agenda. So how do you sort of do everything that you're able to do and balance that with, what the family's, receptive to and able to manage, initially?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think you're right. Unfortunately, I think the phone tends to ring when there's a crisis. So I love when those people are being proactive and come to us before there's a real need. But usually I think the foundation for what we do is an assessment. So that assessment gives us the holistic overview of what's going on. We get a strong understanding of what needs to be addressed immediately. So if someone's in the hospital getting ready for discharge, we're going to deal with that first, getting them discharged, safely, either to home or to a rehab. And then from there, look at the other things that come up during this assessment that would need to be addressed. There's a lot of commonalities, I think, as far as what people need, but then there are also uniquenesses, amongst each of our clients. So I start out with doing the assessment, looking at those areas of concern or need, hearing what the individual, the senior themselves want. I mean, getting their input, getting feedback from families, from medical providers, and then from there, making a plan of care with recommendations. And, for each recommendation, and so with the assessment, they would get a written plan of care with vetted resources. So if I'm going to recommend home care, I would give them 2 or 3 agencies that I've worked with that I can say, I think these are, good places to start. These folks have a proven track record with me and my clients, and go from there. I mean, the goal is to stabilize the situation, but then continue working with the individuals on an ongoing basis to make sure that their needs are being met and that they hopefully, you know, with the involvement of a care manager, would avoid future hospitalizations or crises.
And Aaron, do you think people are usually receptive to all of that after you've addressed, you know, the issue that may have brought them to your doorstep?
Well, I think it is really a triage, to use a medical word. We really do triage, you know, what is the most urgent need? But we will say to them from the start, part of what you're paying for is for us to have a comprehensive approach. Now, it's concierge in that it's different. I said one of the greatest things about this line of work is that all our clients are different. One of the challenges about this line of work is that all our clients are different. So we have to constantly be re-educating ourselves and reaching out and being able to address what the need is for that client at that time. Yes, if they're in the hospital and they're being discharged, they really don't want to have us talk about, you know, pre-planning a funeral or, you know, let's revisit when was the last time you had that power of attorney document done. But we don't forget that those things need to be discussed at some point. And so, you know, we might say, all right, we're going to help you transition back to whatever your living situation was or to a more appropriate living situation. And then after you're settled there, then we can have the conversations about A, B, or C. We are a resource. We say we're not decision makers here. We make recommendations and then we tell you why. Why do we think those are the best recommendations now? Mm-hmm. And then we can have further discussions. We can talk about that later when that's, you know, when the crisis has been managed. Then we can move on to some of the other needs as we see them. And as Liz said, that initial assessment and that plan of care is going to address everything we think in that time frame the person needs now or may need down the road. But we are also constantly readjusting because as people age, their needs change. So we say, this is what we think is going to be very good right now. And then down the road in a few months or a year or several years when things change, then we can come up with the next plan. We are available to them as a resource. Some clients we see on a weekly basis. Some clients we see on a monthly basis. Some we check in with quarterly. Some can be inactive, but then we're available to step back in if there's a need.
So you guys are describing a lot, and I often think that for folks who aren't as focused, I'm sure each of you listening to one another is like, I see you nodding your heads, you know exactly the process. But for all of the other folks who might see this, the occupational therapists, the physical therapists, the geriatricians and their group of extenders in their practice, the folks who work at the rehab facilities, without violating any obviously personal confidential information, are there any particular anecdotes you would share about a relationship that you've had with someone and their family and how it started as one thing and has evolved into other things? You know, Liz or Aaron?
You want to go first, Liz?
Why don't you go ahead? I don't.
Okay. A couple things that I would say, you know, we will work sometimes with clients who have no family members. So in that case, for an example of a very nice lady I worked with, I first became involved with her when she was in independent living in a senior living community, had some cognitive issues. So I was brought in to help support her staying in her apartment, independent living apartment. Over time, as her Alzheimer's diagnosis progressed, we had to move her through higher levels of care, but I was there to help meet her and make adjustments through the end of her life. And I was pleased that it was able to be as comfortable. Her power of attorney was not a relative. So I was responsible for all the communication with that power of attorney to help that. The expression is an elder orphan. Some people may have heard of that. So we're a good person. I've used this expression, the rented daughter with expertise for what we do. So in that case, I really was the stepping into a daughter-like role with her, but as a professional, so I could help. Other clients they have family members, but none of them are local. or they're
Mhm.
local, but they're so inundated with their own work and their own family obligations, they just can't take off time to go to that appointment, or they can't track down all these answers. They don't know where to begin. They know that mom needs to move, but they don't know what the appropriate level of care is, or what the community that may be the right fit is. So we're there to help, as Liz was saying, with the caregivers. The same thing with senior living communities. You know, these are the ones that we think are the best fit for your loved one, and this is why. And because we follow them after the move and continue to work with them after the move, you know, we want to make sure that that's a good fit long term. And we can, again, be there for the care conferences and do those things. And on occasion, we are fortunate and can have, with other clients I work with more proactively, where we're contacted prior to any significant need. They just want to know what's out there. These are our wishes. Are they reasonable? Can you help us understand what the trigger would be for bringing in care or considering a move?
Right. Liz, I saw you shaking your head. You were going to say something at one point.
Well, no, just, I mean, I'm thinking of several of my clients, and, you know, I have, you know, several that are seniors and don't have any family, and they want someone on tap. So right now, I mean, these are, I guess, the ones that are the proactive ones. They want to know that somebody knows their medical situation, that they have a relationship with somebody. So should they have an emergency and find themselves in the ER or need care, that they already have established a relationship with somebody like Erin and myself that can step in and be their advocate. And this anecdotally, I just was thinking, I have clients that I've worked with for several years, and it started out, his son lives out of the country. He contacted me because his parents were in an assisted living facility in New Jersey, and he was having difficulty there. So I stepped in to be an advocate for his parents. I worked with the staff at the facility and was able to keep his parents together. His father passed away. Mom returned to their home. They kept their home in the community. So I then helped mom in her home until it was decided that mom needed, this gentleman lives in Brazil. Mom went to Brazil to be with the son in Brazil, where she is now, and I'm now caretaker of the house. So, I mean, it's really kind of the concierge care. So following through, you know, on making sure, now I'm just checking on the house, making sure bills are getting paid, and, you know, with the hope of getting mom back to the States this summer.